A 50-pound bag of layer feed currently costs you somewhere between $20 and $35, depending on your specific location. And how long does it actually last? Perhaps 3 weeks for a small flock. If you run those numbers over an entire year, you are looking at $600 to $1,000 just to keep a dozen hens laying eggs. Every single dollar of that expense assumes that you are incapable of providing for them yourself. Here is what truly bothers me about that situation. Your great-grandmother kept chickens. Her great-grandmother kept chickens before her. And none of those women ever drove to a feed store. They didn't even have one to go to. What they possessed was land, a handful of specific plants they deeply understood, and birds that were intelligent enough to eat what the ground naturally provided. Somewhere between their time and ours, we simply forgot what those plants were. So I spent several weeks pulling actual university research, not just random blog posts or Pinterest boards, but real poultry science from institutions like the University of Kentucky, Penn State, and various published studies in veterinary and animal nutrition journals. I have put together a list of 21 plants that can replace the most expensive ingredients currently hiding inside that bag of commercial feed. This is not a fantasy list or a collection of 7 trendy superfoods. These are 21 specific plants that cover protein, calcium, fat, energy, vitamins, and even natural parasite control. They are organized into a system where every plant has a specific job and nothing overlaps without a reason. Now, I am going to be honest with you about something that most other channels won't mention, and we will get to that shortly. But first, let's look at the 3 plants that attack the single most expensive ingredient in your feed bag. The most costly ingredient in commercial chicken feed is not corn, it is soybean meal. That is your primary protein source. And protein is the one thing your chickens absolutely cannot go without. It is what builds feathers, muscles, organs, and every single egg that comes out of your coop. A laying hen requires 16 to 18% protein in her diet every single day. If you drop below that level, you will see the results very quickly. You'll notice thin feathers, small eggs, and birds starting to eat each other's plumage because their bodies are literally starving for amino acids. So let's replace that soybean meal. Moringa is the highest protein leaf crop that you can possibly grow. Dried moringa leaves test between 23 and 30% crude protein, and they carry a full amino acid profile, including methionine, the one amino acid that almost every other plant is short on. Its calcium levels run up to 26 times higher than milk. Multiple broiler studies demonstrate that including 5% moringa leaf meal in the ration improves both growth and feed conversion. However, here is what you need to know. Moringa only survives the winter in zones 9 through 11, such as Florida, South Texas, and parts of Arizona and California. Everywhere else, you are growing it as an annual or in containers. That distinction matters. Do not let anyone tell you it is a magic tree for a place like Minnesota. Comfrey is the plant that actually earned the famous phrase, "Grow once, feed forever." A single Bocking 14 plant can live for 12 to 25 years, coming back stronger every spring and producing over 40 pounds of leaves per year across multiple cuttings. Its protein content runs 20 to 30% by dry weight. And here is a detail that almost nobody mentions. Lawrence Hills, the man who conducted the original Comfrey research in England, actually recommended Bocking 4 for animal feed, not Bocking 14. Bocking 4 has deeper roots and a lower alkaloid content. Bocking 14 was specifically bred for garden composting. Both will work, but if you are growing specifically for your flock, you should ask your supplier for Bocking 4. One important rule is to wilt or dry the leaves for a day or two before feeding them. Fresh comfrey contains pyrrolizidine alkaloids, and chickens often refuse to eat it raw anyway. Wilting reduces those compounds and makes the plant palatable. Duckweed is the one that often shocks people. This tiny floating plant, the stuff you see on still ponds, tests between 25 and 43% protein, depending on the species. That puts it in the same nutritional category as soybean meal and fish meal. It doubles its own biomass every 2 days in warm weather. A single IBC tote in your yard can produce a half pound to a pound of fresh duckweed daily. Your chickens will eat it immediately with no adjustment period and no hesitation. One thing to watch for is that duckweed absorbs whatever's in its water, including heavy metals. Only grow it in clean water, such as rainwater, well water, or water you have fertilized with aged compost tea. These three plants together provide a protein supply that rivals what is in that bag. But protein without the right support system goes to waste. That brings us to three plants that do something almost no one talks about. They serve double duty. Most chicken feed plants do only one thing. They are either a green or they are a grain. These three do both, and that is what makes them worth more per square foot than almost anything else in your garden. Amaranth gives you edible leaves at 15 to 25% protein and grain seeds at 13 to 17% protein, with 3 times the lysine found in corn. Lysine is the second most critical amino acid for egg production after methionine, and amaranth contains both. You can grow it as an annual anywhere from zone 3 to 11. It handles drought and poor soil as if it were built for neglect. If you let a few heads go to seed each fall, it will come back on its own the next year without you lifting a finger. One rule: the raw seeds contain trypsin inhibitors. You must dry roast them in a skillet or pop them like popcorn before feeding. That simple step makes all the difference in what your birds actually absorb. You can also scatter dried seed heads in the run. Your flock will spend hours picking through them, which keeps them busy, calm, and out of trouble. Sweet potato vines are the plant most people throw into the compost without realizing what they are wasting. The leaves test at 25 to 30% protein by dry weight, representing one of the highest protein yields per acre of any crop you can grow at home. They are also loaded with xanthophylls, the same pigments commercial producers pay for in synthetic form to turn egg yolks a deep orange. You can feed the vines and leaves fresh or dried at up to 15% of the ration. And here is a myth I want to kill right now. Some people confuse sweet potato vines with white potato foliage and call them toxic. They are completely unrelated plants. Sweet potatoes are Ipomoea in the morning glory family. White potatoes are Solanum in the nightshade family. Sweet potato vines are safe, period. The tubers just need to be cooked first to break down trypsin inhibitors, and then they become a solid carbohydrate source as well. Alfalfa is the plant that literally gave us vitamin K. Scientists first discovered the vitamin in alfalfa leaves. It runs 15 to 22% protein, carries exceptional calcium, and the beta-carotene deepens yolk color to a shade that will make store-bought eggs look anemic. It is a true perennial lasting 6 to 9 years and is hardy in zones 2 through 9. But here is the practical truth. Chickens cannot process long stems. If you toss a flake of alfalfa hay in the run, they will scratch through it and waste most of it. You should chop it fine, soak alfalfa pellets in water until they soften, or grow it as pasture, and let the birds graze the fresh tips. Keep it to about 10% of the diet because beyond that, the fiber starts diluting their calorie intake. Now let's talk about something with a much longer timeline. Plants you put in the ground once, and your grandchildren will still be feeding chickens from them. If I could only recommend one thing to every chicken keeper watching this, it would be to plant a mulberry tree this year. Not next year, but this year. Mulberry is the single most underrated chicken feed tree in America. The leaves run 15 to 35% protein, on par with alfalfa, with digestibility between 70 and 90% in chickens. That is exceptional for a tree leaf. The calcium content runs higher than alfalfa. A 2024 research review covering over 2,000 animals confirmed that mulberry leaves improve daily weight gain and meat protein content in poultry. But what makes it truly grow once, feed forever, is that a mulberry tree lives 75 to 200 years. A single pollarded tree, where you cut the branches back hard each winter to force dense regrowth, produces hundreds of pounds of leafy fodder every year, plus gallons of fruit from June through September. The fruit falls, your chickens eat it off the ground, and you don't do a thing. The leaves you simply cut and carry to the coop. Illinois everbearing is hardy to Zone 4, which covers most of the continental U.S. One honest note, white mulberry is considered invasive in much of the eastern U.S., so plant native red mulberry or name sterile cultivars where you can. But get a mulberry in the ground. Banana sounds tropical, and most varieties are. However, Musa bestiu, the Japanese fiber banana, survives temperatures down to 10 degrees with mulch. That is Zone 5, covering Tennessee, Virginia, and parts of Ohio and Pennsylvania. It won't produce edible fruit that far north, but fruit isn't the point. The point is leaf biomass. Banana leaves test at 10 to 17% protein, and the soft inner stem provides hydration, fiber, and potassium that your birds need, especially in hot weather. A Brazilian study on laying hens found that banana leaf supplementation significantly reduced intestinal parasites and deepened yolk color at the same time. Banana plants are rhizome perennials. One plant becomes three, then five, then a whole grove. You never replant, and your chickens will spend real time tearing apart the fibrous material, which gives them foraging behavior that keeps a confined flock calm and reduces feather picking. That behavioral benefit is worth more than most people realize. Two plantings, decades of feed, and hundreds of dollars saved every single year. But those trees don't help you in January when everything is dormant and your birds are burning calories just staying warm. For that, you need a feed bag alternative. Winter is where most homegrown feed plans fall apart. The pasture is gone and the greens are dead. Your chickens need 10 to 20% more calories just to maintain body heat, and most people go right back to the feed store. These two plants solve that if you plan ahead. Sunflower, specifically black oil sunflower, what old-timers call boss, is the highest calorie crop a small-scale farmer can grow. The seeds run 17% protein and 40 to 50% fat at roughly 2,500 calories per pound. That is energy density you cannot match with any green plant. It provides vitamin E, magnesium, selenium, and critically, methionine, the amino acid that almost every other plant in this list is short on. Sunflower fills that gap. Grow mammoth, black oil, or peridothic. Both are open-pollinated, so you can save seed year after year. Harvest the heads, hang them to dry in a barn or shed, and you have stored calories that last all winter. Hang a dried head in the coop on a cold January morning and watch your birds work at it for hours. That is enrichment and nutrition in one package. But respect the fat content. Cap it at 10% of the diet. More than that, and you risk fatty liver syndrome, which can kill a hen fast. Pumpkin and winter squash are your other winter weapon, and they do something sunflower can't. They store for 6 months in a cool basement without any processing. No drying, no grinding, just set them on a shelf and forget them. A butternut squash has over 500% of the daily value of vitamin A per cup. The seeds run 24 to 30% protein with high zinc and healthy fats. In December, when your flock has zero access to fresh greens and their vitamin A is dropping, you split a pumpkin in half and drop it in the run. They eat the flesh, seeds, and all. Now, about the famous claim that pumpkin seeds are a natural dewormer. There is a compound in them called cucurbitin that does paralyze intestinal worms in laboratory conditions. A study in the Philippines found moderate effectiveness against roundworms in chickens, but the researchers calculated you need about 6 grams of seed per bird to get a real effect, and the pharmaceutical dewormer still outperformed it. So here is how I would put it. Pumpkin seeds are a solid preventive supplement. Feed them regularly as part of the system, but if you do a fecal float and your birds have a heavy worm load, don't gamble with pumpkin seeds alone. Use a proper dewormer and then maintain with the seeds going forward. Sunflower and pumpkin keep your flock fueled through the months when most backyard flocks quietly decline, but feed is only half the equation. A sick flock eats your profit no matter how cheap the feed is, which brings us to 3 plants that function as your flock's medicine cabinet. These 3 plants don't contribute much to protein or calories. That is not their job. Their job is keeping your flock healthy, keeping your vet bills at zero, and turning your egg yolks a color that makes people stop and stare. Marigold, and I mean Tagates erecta, African marigold, is what the commercial egg industry uses to color yolks. When you see a deep orange yolk in a premium egg carton, that color almost certainly came from marigold extract fed to hens. The flowers contain up to 4,200 melanolins per kilogram of carotenoids, mostly lutein and zeaxanthin. Feed 30 to 40 grams of dried flower petals per kilogram of feed, and your yolks will hit the same color scores that Purina charges a premium for in their layer blends. Calendula, or pot marigold, adds antifungal and wound-healing properties on top. Both self-seed aggressively, plant them once around the coop, and they come back every year as volunteers. Oregano has more published poultry research behind it than any other herb. The essential oils, carvacrol and thymol, kill Salmonella, E. coli, and Clostridium perfringens, while leaving beneficial Lactobacillus gut bacteria alone. Bell and Evans, one of the biggest poultry producers in the U.S., famously replaced their entire antibiotic program with oregano oil. Broiler studies show 200 milligrams per kilogram of oregano oil improved growth rates and matched vitamin E for antioxidant effect. But you don't need to buy concentrated oil. Grow oregano in a patch near the coop. It is a true perennial in zones 4 through 9. Toss fresh sprigs into the feed or steep dried leaves into the waterers as a tea. About a teaspoon of dried oregano per pound of feed is a solid starting rate. Just don't pour concentrated essential oil directly into their water. Use the whole plant. Nasturtium rounds out the pharmacy with benzyl isothiocyanate, a natural compound with documented antimicrobial action against E. coli and Salmonella. The traditional claim is that nasturtium works as a dewormer. I will be straight with you. There is a plausible biochemical mechanism, but no controlled poultry trial to confirm it yet. What is confirmed is high vitamin C, strong antioxidants, and carotenoids that add to your yolk color. Leaves, flowers, and seeds are all edible. They self-seed every year, repel aphids and cabbage moths around your garden, and your chickens love them. But what if I told you that 5 of the most powerful chicken feed plants on this entire list are already growing in your yard right now, and you have been pulling them out and throwing them away? These plants cost you nothing. 0 seeds to buy and 0 beds to prepare. These 5 plants are weeds, and every one of them outperforms most things you would buy at a garden center. Dandelion leaves carry over 10,000 IU of vitamin A per 100 grams, the highest of any common green plant. A 2022 veterinary study showed dandelion extract strengthened the gut barrier lining in broilers by boosting the proteins that hold intestinal cells together. A 2023 study on laying hens showed improved egg weight, calcium absorption, and beneficial gut bacteria. You already have dandelions. Stop poisoning them. Plantain, the broadleaf lawnweed, not the banana, tested in a 2016 study at 1% inclusion and outperformed the antibiotic virginiamycin in broilers. It resulted in higher weight gain, stronger immune response, and lower E. coli counts. A separate study showed plantain extract reduced coccidiosis oocyst shedding. That is measurable parasite protection from a plant most people mow over every Saturday. It is a perennial that grows in every climate zone in the country, and it is free. Stinging nettle dries to 25 to 30% protein, with vitamin and mineral density that rivals moringa. Studies confirm it deepens yolk color through beta-carotene and lutein, and quail research showed it reduces yolk cholesterol without hurting the lay rate. The catch, as you already know if you have grabbed one bare-handed, is that raw nettle stings. Your chickens won't eat it fresh. You must wilt it, dry it, or chop it after wearing gloves, and the sting disappears. Harvest before it flowers for the best nutrition and safety. It is a true perennial in zones 3 through 10, and it will take over a shady corner of your property if you let it. Purslane is the plant responsible for the entire omega-3 egg industry. In 1989, a researcher traced the exceptionally high omega-3 content of Greek free-range eggs back to hens eating wild purslane. It has the highest alpha-linolenic acid content of any leafy vegetable on Earth. A 2010 study confirmed that 2% purslane meal in layer diets increased omega-3 in the yolk, raised egg production, and improved feed efficiency. It is a succulent weed that grows in sidewalk cracks. Seeds stay viable in soil for 40 years, so you will never run out. Lamb's quarters hits 25 to 30% protein with massive calcium and vitamin A. Chickens devour it, but I need to give you a real caution here. Lamb's quarters accumulates nitrates from rich soil, especially soil that has been heavily manured. It also contains oxalates. Colorado State flags it as a potential livestock toxin under drought stress. Feed young leaves only, never harvest from manure piles, and don't give it to chicks. For adult birds in normal conditions, it is excellent in moderation. If you want to stop thinking plant by plant and start thinking in systems, permanent, self-sustaining, never replant systems, you need a living floor under your flock. And that is exactly what the last three plants create. Every plant up to this point you harvest, carry, chop, or process. These three, your chickens harvest themselves. You plant them once and the ground feeds your flock directly, year after year. White clover is the most important pasture plant for chickens, and the research goes back decades. A 1949 study showed that hens on Ladino white clover pasture allowed farmers to cut supplement protein down to 12%, a massive feed savings. Later trials confirmed that when given a choice, hens select white clover over grass, over alfalfa, and over virtually every other pasture option. Protein runs 20 to 28% dry weight with solid methionine and lysine levels. It fixes 100 to 150 pounds of nitrogen per acre per year, which means it fertilizes your soil while feeding your birds. It spreads by runners and seeds in zones 3 through 10. Once established, it tolerates traffic, mowing, and chicken scratching better than almost any other ground cover. Red clover sits right next to white clover but fills a different niche. It has higher calcium, which matters enormously for laying hens struggling with shell quality, and slightly higher protein in early growth. It is a short-lived perennial, 2 to 4 years, but it self-seeds reliably enough that you rarely replant. Some people worry about phytoestrogen content in red clover, but at pasture grazing levels in poultry, the impact is negligible. That concern applies more to sheep and cattle consuming it as a primary forage. For chickens pecking through a mixed pasture, it is a non-issue. Chicory is the quiet powerhouse. Protein is 18 to 25% in the vegetative stage. It has a deep taproot that breaks compacted soil and pulls minerals from layers other plants can't reach. But the real reason chicory belongs in every chicken pasture is this. It contains sesquiterpene lactones, specifically a compound called 8-deoxylactocin, with confirmed nematicidal activity. In plain language, it kills gut worms. Livestock studies have demonstrated chicory's effectiveness against roundworms and stomach worms. Poultry research shows it reduces cecal worm reproduction, and the root is packed with inulin, one of the strongest natural prebiotics available, feeding the beneficial bacteria that keep your flock's gut stable. Look for forage cultivars like Puna 2 or Oasis. They are bred for leaf production and deep roots, not the salad varieties. It is a self-seeding perennial in zones 3 through 10. Seed a pasture with these three together. White clover as the base, red clover for calcium, and chicory for deep minerals and parasite control. Now, there is one more thing we need to talk about. The part most channels leave out entirely. It is the part that determines whether any of this actually works for you or falls apart in the first winter. I told you at the beginning I would be straight with you, and here it is. No combination of 21 plants or even 50 plants can replace 100% of commercial chicken feed for a productive laying flock. University of Kentucky research is clear. Chickens are not ruminants. Their digestive system is too small and too fast to extract enough calories from forage alone. A University of Maine broiler study measured actual dry matter intake from pasture at under 4% of the total diet. The rest came from grain. So why did I just spend this entire video showing you 21 plants? Because replacing 100% was never the real goal. The real goal is replacing the expensive parts: soybean meal, synthetic vitamins, mineral supplements, pharmaceutical dewormers, and commercial yolk pigments. Those are the ingredients that drive your feed costs up, and those are exactly what these 21 plants eliminate. The honest, proven, replicable system looks like this. These plants cover 30 to 50% of your flock's diet during the growing season. Insects, black soldier fly larvae, earthworms, and mealworms cover another 10 to 20% and deliver the animal protein and B12 that plants cannot. Kitchen scraps and garden surplus fill another 5 to 10%. And a core of homegrown or locally purchased grain, corn, oats, wheat, or barley, fills the rest. That is a 60 to 70% feed cost reduction in peak season. Over a full year, including winter, you are realistically looking at 40 to 50% savings. On a flock of 25 birds, that is $300 a year staying in your pocket, compounding every year. Meanwhile, your soil gets healthier, your eggs get richer, and your dependence on a supply chain gets smaller. The people actually doing this, Harvey Ussery, Joel Salatin, Justin Rhodes, none of them claim a fully closed loop without grain. Salatin still buys corn and soybean for his polyface broilers. Ussery supplements with whole grains and minerals. But they have built systems where plants, insects, and heritage breeds work together so efficiently that the purchased grain is a fraction of what conventional operations use. That is the real promise, not zero feed bags, but a system where the land works with you instead of sitting there waiting for you to buy something. Start with the plants that fit your climate and your space. Choose one protein plant, one tree, one pasture mix, and one winter storage crop. Build from there, season by season. Every plant you add is a line item that comes off your feed bill and never goes back on. Your chickens didn't evolve to eat from a bag. They evolved to eat from the ground under them and the plants around them. And now you have 21 reasons to let them do exactly that. If this story changed the way you look at the weeds in your garden or the potential of your backyard, please subscribe and like this video. We are digging up the self-sufficient history that the modern world tried to bury. Let's plant a more resilient future together. The next chapter of this treasure map will be revealed soon.